All right, this is the book called Social by Matthew Lieberman. He's a psychologist. He talks a lot about functional MRI. That's what he does his research in. And it's a pretty good book. It's a good little introduction to functional MRI if you're interested in psychology. Functional MRI is a way to correlate what's happening in the person's mind with where there's increased oxygen uptake in the brain. I'll talk about the default. I'm going to show you pictures in a moment, what the default mode network means, how the brain is when we're at rest, task-based network, what the brain's like when we're doing something, salience network, how we get distracted and our attention changes focus. He points out that the public school students don't learn hardly anything because their education's not social. He says we're programmed to care about social things because social things are relevant to our survival. And I think he's right. And you can think about it. When you learn Spanish in school, you don't learn communication, that's social. No, you learn grammar, which is pretty much meaningless. Think about your own first language, English. Nobody learns English by grammar. You learn by communicating. Think about history. The real way to learn history is to study biographies. Hear somebody, interesting storyteller, tell you stories. But the way history is taught in school is based on dates. That's why people forget just about everything. A date, a number is something abstract. It's not meaningful to our brain. They don't learn the Greeks, the Romans, the Bible. It's like the three of the most important things you can learn in school. The reading that's done is based on required books, whereby it's an imposed obligation and nobody likes it or remembers it. Rather than if you choose your own book, you'll read a lot more and you'll remember it better because then it's an adventure. You make a prediction about it and you see if your prediction comes true by reading the book. Math, the way it's taught in school, has zero relevant examples to real life. You should be learning how to use math to start a business, to manage your accounts, to invest in the stock market, to buy a house, to buy a car, something relevant. The way it's taught, you forget everything. Anyways, let me just show you a couple pictures that I think might be a little bit interesting to you about how the brain actually works. Okay, the first one is, why do animals have brain and plants do not, like Voltaire had said? Because the animal moves, okay, but a plant does not. And this is the life cycle of the sea squirt. Basically, when it's young, it's like a tadpole. It swims around and has a brain. When it's in adult phase, the sea squirt attaches to a rock, becomes a filter feeder, and its brain is reabsorbed because you don't need a brain if you just sit around watching TV all day. Okay, here's the major networks in the brain. There's a default mode network right in the middle. And that's if you have somebody on a functional MRI table and you tell them, close your eyes, what are you thinking about? They're going to say, oh, I'm thinking about, my relationships. Betty wanted to go to movie night, but I had to work, so I told her we'll go on a movie this weekend. So you're always thinking about the past and the future, how the past relates to the future. That's the default mode network, usually something social, because social is essential to the survival of humans. Okay, the task-based network is on the outside of the brain, and that's things like needing to get something done. Okay, I need to see these next 10 patients before I can go home, so I got to do everything involved in that. Salience network is more like there's a distraction over here. And what happens is in your peripheral vision, you got your rods, black and white photoreceptors, and they see that there's motion. So then you turn with your head to get both eyes on it, stereoscopic, binocular vision. You get better depth perception. Then you get your cones in there, your macula, your fovea, which are much closer spaced together, so you get higher resolution. So you can tell what the thing is. So basically, we got good black and white motion detectors, then we put color vision on it, high acuity color vision. So it's low acuity, black and white, peripheral vision to sense motion, like a predator could be coming towards us. Then color vision, high resolution, to figure out what the thing is. And what do we do? Okay, first thing to know about is the three-part brain of McClean. So basically your brain stem is a connection with your spinal cord. And so imagine this is your brain stem, like the fist part of it. This all below is your spinal cord. And that's also called the reptile brain for the most simple reflex things, kind of like the id of Freud, if you will. Okay. The next is the cingulate gyrus, which is like the letter C. It's in continuity through something called the isthmus into the medial temporal lobe. And that's the mammal brain, if you will. The limbic brain, it's also called. Limbic means edge. It's the medial edge of the brain. It's the emotional brain, very fast and impulsive. Like think about your dog. Your dog's very with it emotionally, and your dog's real quick. Then on top of it is the primate brain, the cerebral cortex. That's where you have your thinking, your sophistication, what makes us unique as humans, the ability to speak, the ability to delay gratification in pursuit of a goal, the ability to do theory of mind and to think our way into another person's thoughts and intentions. Does she really like me or does she not? Why did she act like that? Why did she give me that funny look? I know what she said, but why did she have that funny look? Why did she change her tone of voice? So that ability to think, those are all very human characteristics, okay? And despite all this, 70% of our neurons are down here in the cerebellum, and that's all because they're short length for fine motor control. We're very coordinated, much more than people realize. We can write our name with a pen and draw a picture and stuff, you know. Moravec's paradox was the hard thing was easy and the easy thing was hard. It's easy to teach a computer to do calculus. You can make one do that in the 1950s, but to make a robot move well, that's much more difficult. But they're getting better with them now, obviously, but that was a lot harder to teach. Okay, well, anyways, that's a three-part brain of McClean. Reptile brain is your brainstem, cingulate gyrus into the medial temporal lobe, shaped like the letter C on a Chicago Bears football helmet. That's your emotional brain, your mammal brain, and then your cerebral cortex, your human brain, is the part on top. And so basically, okay, what's the point of going through all that? The point of it is that when you're emotional, you react impulsively, like when you're stressed out, like a dog, okay? Versus your human brain is to say something like, well, she's acting like a pain in the butt tonight. She might be on her period. I'm not going to say or do anything rude because then she'll be upset tomorrow. I want this to just blow over. I don't want her to be upset. So even though I feel like she treated me unfairly, yelled at me for no reason, I'm going to just not say anything and make a fuss about it. So you have the ability to ask yourself, what are the long-term consequences of my behavior? And I think to maintain the relationship good, I'm not going to make a fuss about this minor issue. So that's an example of your higher level thinking brain. Whereas if you drink a lot of caffeine, you're in the mammal brain, and you're much more likely to react impulsively and behave in a way that you might regret later. So, okay, we talked about default mode network, thinking about, usually thinking about relationships and stuff, the past and the present, and the past and the future, and then the present is task-based network. So what's the point of this? Well, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're stressed out, you're worried about something, and one of the best things you can do from a therapeutic point of view is just get busy. When you're doing an actual task, you're pulled into the moment, and you don't have time to think about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow. You just get into the present, so it cheers you up. So getting busy cheers you up. It's another reason why exercise cheers you up. When you're lifting weights, you're just thinking about getting that weight up for another repetition, okay? You're not thinking about, does Betty love me, or she loves me not, she loves me, she loves me not. And the salience network is what I just talked about, how you get distracted. That's why you can't have the TV on or other things distracting you. There's also the concept of right and left brain, okay? Now your left brain, you can remember L for language, L for linear, L for logical. That's kind of like your school brain, and it exaggerates its knowledge. It's sort of Apollonian, if you will, deductive logic, like an Aristotelian syllogism. All men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. It's the predator brain, and like I said, it overestimates its accuracy. And it's also optimistic, versus the right brain is more like the prey brain. It's inductive logic. So the right brain would be like the dog looking at the bird saying, maybe I'll run over there, catch that bird, and eat it. The bird itself, being the prey, is more like the right brain. It's looking around saying, gee, I think there's a raccoon up in the tree that might come after me. Here comes this dog walking close. Should I fly away? Or I got enough time to eat a few more breadcrumbs before I bolt. Okay, and it's more metaphors, jokes, singing. It's Dionysian, okay, rather than being Apollonian. It's more pessimistic. It's also religion. Okay, let's see. This is the hippocampus. That's the main thing in memory. The old joke is, what neuroscience center has the fattest students? The hippocampus, okay. And then how do you remember anything? You basically form a metaphor, a simile, a comparison of what you already know, something you already know with something new. And that's how all new information is stuck in your brain. So what you already know is like a scaffolding system, cabinets to put different things into their proper categories. So whenever you learn something new, ask yourself, what is this like? What is this not like? Okay, all that stuff about the different networks, that's basically functional MRI type stuff. There's more networks than that I show you, but those are the key ones. Okay, this is just the glymphatic system, meaning that at night, your brain cleans itself. The perivascular spaces of Virchow-Robin around your brain cells, around your neurons, can open up, and cerebrospinal fluid can flow around them. And the cells pump out their waste products, like English people in the Victorian age dumping out their chamber pots into the street, and then the water rinses it away. I'll show you a better picture of it. So here would be the perivascular space around a penetrating artery of the cerebral cortex, and then the CSF fluid slowly trickles across to the venous perivascular space of Virchow Robin. The neuron pumps out these little brown waste products, and they're rinsed into the perivenous space, perivascular space of Virchow Robin. Then they go up into the superior sagittal sinuses, and they're removed from the body. Okay, they're removed from the brain. So that's how the brain cleans itself. And the brain cleans itself at night while you're asleep. It can't do much cleaning in the daytime because your neurons can't go offline because they got to maintain precise neuronal ionic gradients, and therefore you clean it more at night because it can go offline for a little while. And that's why you're smartest when you wake up in the morning. So you want to do your difficult academic work when you first wake up in the morning. Here's a better drawing of it. Again showing the they call it convective flow. It's the cerebrospinal fluid traveling down this perivascular space of Virchow Robin around the artery, going across the brain parenchyma to the venous perivascular space, and these little black things here are the waste coming out of the neuron, and then they're removed from the brain. And that's called glymphatic system, which is a combination of gly for glial and lymphatic for lymphatic system. There actually are meninges. In the meninges, the coverings of the brain, not the brain itself, but in the coverings of the brain, there are lymphatic pathways where some of that goes. Okay, this is just a little bit more detail of the brain and coronal section, cut from front to back, if you will. We don't need to go into that for today. Just one quick example. You look at the lateral surface of the brain, and when somebody first sees it, it's kind of intimidating. But if you have a systematic way to make sense of it, it's very easy. I'll just look at the Sylvian Fisher, say it looks like a snail. The antennas coming up form part of the pars opercularis. Opercularis means covering. Pars just means part. So there's three parts of it. The pars opercularis, orbitalis, triangularis, opercularis. Right behind it is the precentral sulcus. After that's the central sulcus. After that's the postcentral sulcus. Here's the interparietal sulcus between the superior and inferior parietal lobule. On top of the Sylvian Fisher, the snail's tail, you got Wernicke's ear, or the supramarginal gyrus. Over here, the angular gyrus. Superior, middle, inferior temporal gyri. Superior, middle, inferior frontal gyri. Okay, the reason I went through all that, what I'm trying to show you is when you have a system, something that looked real complicated in the beginning becomes easy. And it always begins with I find the snail. Once I got the snail, I can derive everything else very easily. So that's how you become smart at stuff, is you figure out a path to being. And I learned that initially kind of from Tom Nadich. He's the best neuroanatomist, neuroradiologist in the world. He's out in New York at Mount Sinai. It's kind of brilliant. But that's how you do it. Okay, that's all I got for the brain today. So it's a decent book. If you're interested in functional MRI and psychology, I think you'll like it. Hope you found that helpful.